Hi everyone, and welcome to the Educational Alchemists YouTube channel. I'm Professor Gilly Salmon, and with me today I've got Dr. Lisa Taylor, and she and I have been working together on enabling virtual placements across the health sector. So we thought you'd like to know a bit more about it, and so I'm going to explore some ideas with Lisa, and you can hear what she says. So welcome, Lisa. Can you just introduce yourself and say how you came to be involved in virtual placements during this
Certainly.
COVID year?
Okay, thank you, Gilly. Yeah, I'm Lisa Taylor. I'm an associate professor in occupational therapy, and I'm actually at the University of East Anglia in Norwich, part of the School of Health Sciences. So we have a range of professions within our school, one of which is occupational therapy. And our students were due to have their placements in the springtime, just as COVID came into being, and the placements were actually suspended. So we were able to actually transfer some of the placements that we offered to our different cohorts of students to later in the year. But there was one particular cohort of students that we needed to do there, and then that's how I then came to organise the virtual placement.
That was very brave, very brave, and I'm sure it was very demanding as well. But what was so good about it, I think, is that you evaluated it and explored actually what happened along with actually delivering it to your students.
Sure.
So I was
Yeah,
very
I mean,
admiring of that.
certainly the sort of organisational side of it very much looked at the normal placement outcomes and the normal placement processes. It just there was that the students wouldn't see the patients actually face to face, but everything else mirrored a placement experience. But because it was new and something that hadn't necessarily been done before, I thought the evaluation was a really important part of it. And then when the evaluation came through, I realised then actually there was really important learning that the students had evaluated that I needed to share more widely. And then, you know, got reading about your work, Gilly, and yeah, the rest is history, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess so. Well, I remember getting an email asking me about the 5-stage model. So for viewers, you know, a lot of people that follow these videos know about the 5-stage model. If not, we'll put some links for you both to the virtual placements and the 5-stage model underneath here in the channel. But what was very exciting is that you'd use the 5-stage model to try and understand and interpret what actually went on with the virtual placement. So, I mean, what alerted you to some interesting outcomes?
I think from my point of view, the focus for me was the placement outcomes and the students achieving those placement outcomes, but the evaluation came through really strongly about the peer enhanced learning that the students got that you wouldn't ordinarily have got from as well from that sort of one-to-one traditional placement model. And so then someone mentioned in passing about your work, and I read up and I realised actually, obviously as an academic, I'm always looking at the pedagogy underneath what I'm doing, but also as an occupational therapist, it's very much around evidence-based practice and wanting to make sure there's evidence for what you're doing. I'd got the evidence from the evaluation that the learning had been good and the placement outcomes had been achieved and all of that sort of thing, but actually from a pedagogical point of view, I was quite amazed actually about how well the learning that had been reported mapped onto your 5 stages of learning.
Yeah, me too. Me too. But actually, the 5-stage model originally was a grounded model, and it did describe what happened when people were given an opportunity to work together digitally. So when I thought about it later, it wasn't so surprising, but it was almost a mirror, wasn't it, in many ways about the collaboration, and as you say, brought an emergent property to something that you did out of necessity, really. Yeah.
I mean, you talk about equivalence quite a lot, don't you, Gilly? And,
Yeah.
you know, and you say there's equivalence in the learning, whether it's digital or online or, you know, or not. But in some cases, there can be better and more in-depth learning. And I think, you know, from the evaluation, that's what was really exciting. You know, you were getting the equivalent learning from a placement, but then there were these magic bits around the peer learning that
Oh,
seemed to get that additional learning.
shock horror, can't be true. It was better. Can that be true? Yeah. What did the students actually think of it? How did they feel about it?
Yeah, they found that their professional reasoning, the way they're able to interrogate their decision making, both from a reflective and a critical point of view within themselves, but also watching some of the live sessions that the students took the lead with, they were able to be critical about their peers. The way the timetable was constructed meant that there was autonomous individual learning, but then they would come back to their peer groups as well. And then when they brought that learning together, they were having to justify where they were coming from and their decision making. But I think enabled that depth of learning and that real, just a real learning that otherwise might not have happened in quite the amount of depth that it did within their peer learning groups. And students certainly said that their confidence in their professional reasoning on future placements would then be that much more, because they'd had that opportunity to, almost within a safe environment, to have that interrogation with their peers over decisions made.
It was a safe environment, wasn't it? In many ways, that and they were therefore able to do more and more in depth, perhaps, because of that. So anyway, that's how it all started. Can you just bring me up to date on what's happening with sharing and disseminating this now? Because so many people seem to be wanting to try this during the next academic year.
Yeah, there's been a big demand for PEEP model, the PEEP model of placement delivery, nationally and internationally. Actually, with you and I are getting emails daily from people who are interested in the PEEP, because I think placement capacity has been an ongoing issue even before COVID.
Sure.
And although PEEP was originally developed to replace a placement that was going to be happening at that point in time for our students, having looked at the evaluation and seen how the learning was really supported through that model and unearthed that rich learning that was in addition perhaps to what would have been achieved on a traditional face-to-face placement, there are going to be ongoing placement capacity issues even when COVID's gone.
Sure.
You know, student numbers are being increased. Placement capacity is an ongoing issue, both within healthcare and generically as well. And certainly the PEEP model appears to offer something that people are really interested in, because it's got that pedagogical underpinning. The evaluation is really, really good. The heart of it are those learning outcomes you'd be wanting the students to achieve anyway, but it's all those added extras, I think, that just add that element from an employability point of view, as well as the learning point of view, and other ingredients, I think, that people are being impressed by.
Sounds like a win-win to me. But if people undertake the acquisition workshops, they can hear more from you and also more from me about the 5-stage model, but particularly more from you. Would you say then that they could then actually go ahead and apply it to their own area and their own context?
Yeah, certainly. You and I have worked hard to sort of use the learning that we've got from that original PEEP to develop the PEEP acquisition package, which is that the flipped learning for delegates to learn about the pedagogy, learn about the case study of the PEEP and their placement learning outcomes and their professional standards, bring those to a workshop activity, go through the detail of the timetable, sort of deconstruct and reconstruct for local delivery. and certainly the pilot that we've done of that PEEP acquisition workshop has shown that the delegates, 100% of the delegates said that they were in a position then to be able to implement a PEEP locally.
That's
so
amazing.
Yeah.
And obviously the workshop, for those watching, is 100% digital, so you can do it from anywhere. We'd have to do that, wouldn't we? We'd have to do that.
Yeah, and we've trialled it, haven't we, with 6 professions now. So although the original PEEP was with the PEEP acquisition package itself has been piloted with 6 individual professions, and each of one of the professions are quite unique in their requirements from a placement provision point of view, and the number of placement hours, etc., that they have to do as part of their training. But they've all said it's customisable to their individual professions.
Yeah, that's great joy and a chance to disseminate widely and help people who are going to have an awful lot to do with the new normal as we go into next year's academic processes. So anyway, thanks very much for listening, everyone. We'll put all the links underneath, and just get in touch if you want to know more, and have a look on the websites as well. So thanks very much. This is Education Alchemists YouTube channel. We'll see you all next time. Bye for now, and thanks again, Lisa.
Okay, thanks, Gilly. Bye-bye.